Some people walked out of your life and you still don't know why. You were genuine with them. You made sacrifices. You stayed loyal. You included them in your du'as. You wanted it to work. You gave them your time, your heart, your trust, and still they turned away like none of it mattered. They stopped checking in. They changed overnight. They disconnected without explanation. And all you were left with was silence, confusion, and heartbreak. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Why would Allah let this happen when I prayed so much for them to stay? But my beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes when someone exits your life, it has nothing to do with your failure. It has everything to do with Allah's protection. You see, Allah knows what you do not know. He sees the future you can't see. He hears the conversations you were never meant to hear. He knows the tests you wouldn't have survived had you stayed attached to the wrong person. So He removes them. And yes, it feels like your world just collapsed. Yes, it hurts in ways you can't describe. But sometimes heartbreak is the mercy you didn't recognize. Sometimes what feels like destruction is actually divine rescue. Because if you truly knew what Allah was protecting you from, if He showed you every silent betrayal, every delayed blessing, every heartbreak they would have caused later, you would not just let go willingly. You would fall into sujood in gratitude for the very thing that shattered you. Because that shattering was not your end. It was your turning point. You weren't abandoned. You were shielded. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. You weren't unloved. You were deeply protected by the one who knows what your heart doesn't yet understand. So don't be angry with Allah for who left. Be grateful that He took them before they could delay your growth, destroy your peace, or take you off the path that leads you closer to Him. You asked for peace. You asked for what's best. You begged Allah to bring you what's written for you. And sometimes that answer comes through removal, not reward. What walked away from your life was never meant to carry your soul to its destination. Allah removes people not because you're not worthy, but because they were never worthy of the future He's preparing you for. So trust that ending. Because when Allah takes something away, He's not emptying your life. He's making room for something far greater. Sometimes we get so attached to someone that we begin to lose ourselves. We don't even realize it, but slowly they become our main focus. We think about them constantly. We message them all the time. We wait for their replies. We plan our day around them. And somewhere along the way, we forget about Allah. Our salah becomes rushed or we delay it. Our Quran gathers dust. Our du'as become weak. Our hearts feel distant, not just from Allah, but from ourselves. The peace we used to feel in sujood, it fades. The calm we once felt after Fajr, it disappears. Why? Because our heart became more attached to a creation than to the Creator. And Allah, in His love for us, sometimes removes that person. Not to hurt us, but to wake us up. He sees what we don't. He sees how far we've gone, how lost we're becoming. And so, out of His mercy, He allows that relationship to end. That message doesn't come. That call stops. That bond suddenly breaks. And we cry. We feel abandoned. But in reality, it is Allah saying to you, come back to me. I'm still here. I've always been here. He is Al-Wadud, the most loving. And He knows that sometimes the only way your heart will return to Him is if it breaks away from the one who was pulling you away. So yes, it hurts, but maybe that pain is not punishment. Maybe it's protection. Maybe that disconnection is your doorway back to Allah. Maybe that heartbreak is how your heart begins to heal. Because when you return to Him, you find peace again in your salah. You find tears again in your dua. You find hope again in your heart. And suddenly, you realize that the person you thought you lost was never meant to be the center of your world. The one who never leaves is the one you truly needed all along. Let that be your healing. let that be your turning point. Because what felt like a painful ending might just be the beginning of your return to Allah. Sometimes Allah sends someone into your life for a short time. You may feel deeply connected to them. You may think this person is a blessing, and you begin to imagine a future with them. You plan things in your mind. You build hopes around their presence. But then, suddenly, they're gone. The calls stop, the messages slow down, the closeness fades, and eventually that person walks away, or Allah causes something to separate you both completely. And you're left wondering, what happened? Everything felt so right. Why would Allah let this person enter my life only to take them away? But the truth is, not everyone who comes into your life is meant to stay forever. Some people are not blessings to keep. They are tests you're meant to pass. They were sent to test your patience, to test your character, to test how much you trust Allah when your heart doesn't get what it wants. They were a mirror showing you what still needs healing inside you. They were a lesson helping you grow into the version of yourself that you couldn't become while clinging to them. And once that lesson is complete, Allah removes them. It hurts, yes, but it's like a school exam. When the test is over, the paper is taken away. You don't cry over the test being taken. You wait for the results. You move on to what's next. In the same way, when someone suddenly exits your life, instead of holding on to memories, instead of torturing your heart by replaying every moment, stop and reflect. What did Allah want to teach me through this person? Maybe they taught you to never lose yourself in someone again. Maybe they showed you how important your boundaries are. Maybe they exposed your weakness so you could turn to Allah for strength. Maybe they helped you realize your worth by showing you who didn't value it. You see, it's never just a breakup. It's never just a loss. With Allah, everything has a purpose. So don't keep rereading the same painful chapter. Don't hold on to what was only meant to be temporary. Allah knows what He's doing. He didn't send them without reason. And He didn't take them without wisdom. That person may have only been one page in your story, not your whole book. Sometimes you have to let the test end so the blessing that lasts can finally begin. Sometimes you don't even notice it, but someone in your life is quietly holding you back. You're trying to become better. You're trying to change. You're trying to pray more, speak less, stay calm, stay pure. But every time you take one step forward, they pull you 2 steps back. They always seem to start arguments when you're trying to stay silent. They make fun of you when you try to be more religious. They call you too soft when you choose patience. They joke about your faith. They distract your focus. They make you question your growth. They say things like, "You've changed," as if change is something bad. And over time, without even realizing it, your heart starts to get heavier. You're no longer as motivated to improve. You're emotionally tired, spiritually distant. You want to rise, but you feel stuck. That person might not be evil, but they don't belong in the chapter Allah is calling you to enter. And so, in His mercy, Allah removes them, not to harm you, but to free you. Because you can't fly while someone is tying your wings. You can't grow in a garden where someone is constantly stepping on your roots. You can't purify your soul while someone is throwing dirt at your peace. So their exit, as painful as it feels at first, is actually a form of divine mercy. A quiet permission from Allah that says you're ready to rise, and they can't come with you. And yes, when they leave, it might feel like loneliness at first, but later, as your heart heals, you'll notice the peace returning. You'll notice your salah getting deeper. You'll feel closer to Allah. You'll begin to realize they weren't your peace, they were the noise. And now that they're gone, you can finally hear your soul again. You'll look back one day and say, that separation was the beginning of my transformation. Because when Allah wants to raise you, He will remove whatever is weighing you down. Sometimes Allah will shake up your world by removing someone you thought you couldn't live without. And only later will you realize it was exactly what you needed to reconnect with your soul. You see, not everyone is meant to walk with you toward Jannah. Some people are only comfortable with the old version of you, the one who didn't pray, who didn't set boundaries, who laughed at everything, wasted time, and didn't care about the akhirah. The moment you start changing, the moment you want to leave sin, the moment you try to become cleaner in your speech, in your heart, in your life, they feel uncomfortable. They pull back, or they make fun of you, or they try to drag you back into what you walked away from. And maybe you held on to them because you didn't want to be alone. Maybe you thought you could carry them with you into your growth. But the truth is, if someone is not ready to grow, no matter how much you love them, they will eventually become your test. And sometimes, out of His deep love for you, Allah does what you were too afraid to do. He removes them. He separates you, even if it hurts. He distances you, even when you don't understand why. He pulls them out of your life not as a punishment, but as an invitation to rise. Because He sees what you're capable of becoming. He sees the purity in your heart. He sees the version of you that prays with sincerity, who remembers Him in the quiet of the night, who finds tears in sujood. But that version of you can't bloom in a toxic environment. So He removes the noise. He removes the distraction. He removes the person who was feeding your weakness and silencing your fitrah. And you might cry in the beginning. You might feel confused, thinking, why did they leave? What did I do wrong? But slowly, as time passes, your heart starts to breathe again. You start feeling a stillness you haven't felt in years. Your du'as become deeper. Your Qur'an touches your heart again. You begin to feel yourself returning to who you were always meant to be. And then it clicks. That person wasn't helping you grow. They were holding you back. That relationship wasn't love, it was spiritual noise. That connection wasn't peace, it was a delay in your elevation. Allah didn't abandon you. He cleared the path so you could walk with more light, more clarity, and more nearness to Him. You begin to realize their absence didn't leave a hole, it made space for something better. Something real, something lasting, something that strengthens your deen instead of shaking it. Sometimes the greatest spiritual growth doesn't happen with someone, it happens after they leave. So don't see their departure as a loss. See it as a door opening. See it as Allah saying to you, you're ready for more. And I'm making room for it. Because when Allah wants good for His servant, He will not let anyone or anything stand in the way, not even the people we thought we couldn't live without. That heartbreak, that disconnection, that silence, it might just be the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of your life. A chapter where you finally rise. Sometimes in life, you're doing everything right. You're praying, you're making dua, you're trying to work hard, you're asking Allah for success, for peace, for opportunities. But nothing seems to move. Everything feels stuck. Your mind is foggy. You feel tired, confused, and emotionally drained, like your blessings are blocked and you don't know why. And then, one day, someone leaves your life. Maybe they walk away. Maybe Allah removes them through a disagreement, a distance, a breakup, or something unexpected. And at first, you feel pain. You feel abandoned. But then something strange starts to happen. You begin to feel lighter. You begin to think clearly. Your sleep improves. You feel more focused. Your heart feels calmer. And then doors that were closed for months, even years, suddenly start to open. A job opportunity appears. Money that was stuck suddenly flows. Your health improves. Your creativity returns. Your energy is restored. And that's when you realize, maybe that person wasn't part of your rizq. Maybe they were the reason it was being delayed. You see, not all relationships bring barakah. Some people carry energy that blocks the blessings of a house. Some hearts carry envy, negativity, or a presence that simply doesn't belong in the space Allah is trying to bless. Sometimes you're making dua for something and the only reason you're not receiving it is because of who you're holding on to. It's like trying to pour clean water into a glass that's already full of dirt. Until you remove what's polluting your heart, the barakah won't come. And Allah in His mercy removes them for you. Not to break your heart, but to make room for what you've been asking for. To unblock the flow of rizq that He already wrote for you, but was being blocked by your own emotional attachments. Because when you're constantly drained by someone's words, their actions, their mood swings, their disrespect, their drama, how can you focus on building a life of peace? When your heart is always heavy from emotional stress, how can you connect with Allah in a way that invites real rizq? When your self-worth is constantly being questioned, how can you stand with the confidence needed to accept the good things Allah wants to give you? Sometimes the removal of a person is the arrival of your provision. You didn't lose, you just made space. You didn't get rejected, you got redirected. You didn't get abandoned, you got protected. And that person, maybe they were never meant to witness the version of you that Allah is preparing. Maybe they were never written to eat from the table Allah is setting for you. Maybe their character, their attitude, their presence didn't match the blessings you were about to receive. So Allah took them away. And slowly, you began to rise, not just in worldly success, but in peace, in focus, in gratitude, in tawakkul. And that's when you truly understand. Some people are not part of your rizq, they are part of your test. And when that test ends, Allah clears the space so your blessings can enter. Your job is not to chase what left. Your job is to recognize the mercy behind their absence and to say with a heart full of trust, Ya Allah, you know what's best. And if this removal brings me closer to your rizq, then I am content. Because the moment you stop clinging to people who are not written for your future is the moment your future finally begins. You may not realize it in the moment, but sometimes the person you're holding on to is the very reason things aren't moving forward in your life. You might be thinking, but I loved them, I trusted them, I was loyal to them, I shared everything with them. And that might be true, but love alone isn't always enough. Loyalty doesn't always bring barakah when the relationship is draining your soul instead of nourishing your spirit. Because while you were busy giving your heart to them, you didn't notice how your du'as were becoming weaker. You didn't notice how your focus was disappearing. You didn't notice how you began doubting your own worth. You didn't notice how your emotional stress was showing up in your health, your career, your prayers, even your rizq. Sometimes Allah sees how deeply trapped you've become, trapped in confusion, trapped in dependency, trapped in emotional exhaustion. And He knows you can't walk into the next chapter of your life while carrying that weight. So He removes the person. And at first, you resist, you cry, you beg, you pray for them to come back. But what you don't realize is the moment they left is the moment Allah began unblocking your path. It's as if Allah is saying, you've been asking me for rizq, but there is no space in your life for it to enter, not while you're clinging to someone I never wrote for your future. And then you start to notice changes. You begin to sleep better. You start thinking clearly. You make decisions with more strength. You stop doubting yourself. You start remembering Allah more deeply. You reconnect with who you were and who you want to be. And it hits you. You weren't the problem. You were just stuck in a space that couldn't grow. You see, rizq is not just money. Rizq is peace. Rizq is clarity. Rizq is healthy love. Rizq is a pure heart. Rizq is people who bring you closer to Allah, not those who keep you in emotional chains. And when Allah removes someone, it might be because that person was standing in front of a door that was meant to open for you. Their presence was not part of your divine schedule. Their energy didn't match what Allah was about to send. So He moved them. And the moment they left, the winds changed. Suddenly your business starts working. Your heart starts healing. Your home feels lighter. Your mind becomes calmer. Your prayers feel real again. This is not magic. This is not coincidence. This is the hidden mercy of Allah. You may have cried over their exit, but one day you'll say, Ya Allah, thank you for not giving me what I wanted because you gave me what I needed. And if you're still holding on to someone and nothing is moving, if your heart is constantly heavy, if your rizq feels blocked, then pause and ask yourself, is this person helping me grow in my deen, in my peace, in my journey to Allah? If the answer is no, maybe it's not them you need to chase. Maybe it's Allah you need to return to. Because when Allah becomes enough for you, He gives you everything you need. And He takes away everything that was quietly holding you back. You know, sometimes you cry out to Allah in the middle of the night. You lift your hands and say, Ya Allah, give me peace. Ya Allah, I just want to be happy. Ya Allah, please remove what's hurting me. And you mean it. You say it with tears, with sincerity, with your whole heart. You expect an answer. You hope for a change. You wait for things to get better. But instead, the person you love walks away. The relationship breaks. The connection dies. They ghost you, they forget you, they move on. And you feel crushed. You feel ignored. You start to think, did Allah even hear me? I made so much dua. Why is this happening? But what you don't realize in that moment is that your dua was answered, just not in the way you imagined. You were asking for peace, but you didn't know that they were the reason you didn't have peace. You were asking for what's best, but you didn't know that they were holding you back from what's best. You were begging Allah to fix things, and Allah was trying to fix you by removing what was slowly breaking your soul. Because sometimes the only way Allah can answer your dua is by giving you something different from what you asked. Not because He's rejecting you, but because He's protecting you. You see, when you love someone too much, you might not see their flaws clearly. You might ignore the signs. You might overlook the pain just to keep them near. But Allah sees what your heart is too attached to. He sees what your eyes cannot. He knows the nights you cried over them, but He also knows the harm that would come if you kept them. So He removes them, and it feels like a loss. But in reality, it's a response. It's Allah's way of saying, I heard you, I saw your tears, but I'm answering you with something better. Just wait. And yes, it may take time, because healing takes time. Because sometimes Allah needs to empty your hands before He fills them again. And during that time, Shaitan may whisper, look, your du'as don't work. See, you prayed so much and they still left. Where is your God now? Don't listen. That's the test after the dua. You see, when you plant a seed, you don't see the tree the next day. But that doesn't mean it isn't growing in the same way. When you make dua, you may not see the results immediately, but something is happening behind the scenes. Allah is preparing. Allah is clearing your path. Allah is aligning the right people, the right moment, the right healing, and removing the wrong ones. And one day, when you're in a better place, when your heart is finally calm again, when you're sitting in a home filled with barakah, surrounded by peace, praying in sujood with clarity, you'll look back and say, Alhamdulillah, that person left. Alhamdulillah for the unanswered dua. Because if Allah gave me what I asked for, I would have never reached this. So be patient with your du'as. Sometimes the delay is the mercy. Sometimes the heartbreak is the healing. Sometimes the removal is the answer. And never forget this. When Allah says no to something you want, it's because He's saying yes to something far better than you imagined. Sometimes you beg Allah for something and when you don't get it, you feel forgotten. But the truth is, Allah never forgets His servant. Not for a second, not for a heartbeat. Not even when you're in the middle of your darkest night, crying into your pillow, feeling like no one understands. He knows every tear that falls. He hears every silent dua you whisper in your chest. He sees every moment you lower your gaze, fight your desire, stay silent when you're angry, just because you're trying to do things the right way. And still, when things fall apart, when that person you love disappears, when the story you imagine doesn't happen, you feel disappointed. You wonder, I did everything right. Why did it still go wrong? But maybe it didn't go wrong. Maybe it went exactly right, just not your version of right. You see, dua is not a transaction. It's not a button you press and suddenly everything you want appears exactly how you imagined. Dua is a submission. It's you saying, Ya Allah, I want this, but you know better, so give me what is best even if I don't understand it right now. That's real trust. The pain comes when we assume Allah's job is to fulfill our wish list. But His job is not to please our desires. His job and His mercy is to protect our future, even when it looks different from what we expected. You might have asked for that person to stay, but maybe